Welcome to Team DataFam Tableau User Group meeting number 31. This tug works a little bit differently to others. We meet at a whole different range of time, so we can get different presenters from around the world. All the meetings are recorded, put on YouTube so you can watch them later, listen to them on a podcast, whichever you want to use best. More details about that at the end. We have some TC25 presentations coming up over the next few weeks. We've got some Visit Sydney presentations booked as well. But if you were presenting there or not presenting there and you've just got something else to present, we can fit you in. There's always time slots available. So email me at team.datafam@gmail.com. We'll find a slot that suits you. Today we do have a TC25 repeat, which is Timothy showing us how to extend, enrich, and excel using Python with Tableau. And obviously Python, Tableau, there's a lot of coding to do suddenly. But I'll hand it over to Timothy and he can lead us through the presentation and we'll see what we can learn today.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chris. And good morning or evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. I see a few familiar faces and I'm thrilled with that. As you said, Chris, this is a TC25 repeat. And it's not the first one, but I guess I've heard positive things about the content, so I figured why not. Good intro, I suppose. So extend, enrich, excel, Python, and Tableau, these two really go hand in hand. If it's okay, I think people can ask questions indeed, as you suggest, Chris, in the Q&A. I'll monitor those as well, so I think I can pause, but if I miss anything, don't hesitate to just shout and then we can stop. I really don't mind interrupting to clarify and to go into any questions that there are, so don't hold back. Okay, there's an intro and then there's a lot of practical stuff. We're actually going to see a lot of code live. That's not supposed to be scaring you or anything. It's just a way of showcasing these functionalities in a more convincing manner, as far as I consider that. But first, there are a few things we need to establish and go through. So we will walk through that. And I'll start with a question, which is, which programming language should I learn? This is a question that I've personally received many times. Just, being a consultant in the data space, working with Tableau at companies with different teams. Some people often show interest in this and they are wondering what the answer to this question is in their context. And the context I evolve in, data and Tableau, well, that always is the same answer. I think you can guess what that answer is. You thought Python, but it's not true. It depends. It always depends. I'm a consultant. It depends. I'm in DataViz. It depends. But, well, all joking aside, it is probably Python in this context that we evolve in. And there are a few reasons for that. Why would it be Python when you work with Tableau? Why is it Python if you work with data? Well, aside from that, we'll get to those specifics, but Python in general, even outside of the data space, is a relatively simple programming language. It's what they call high level, meaning that it's not so much low level, not so much close to the architecture of your processor, not so close to the machine itself, where you can have very abstract instructions to operate directly on the processor. But instead, there's a lot of abstraction that has been done so that working with it is simple, simpler also than languages like you may have heard of C and the likes. They are enormously popular because they are very, very, very powerful for a broad range of applications, and Python is too, but it is simpler to learn because of libraries that are available and things like that. Speaking of those libraries, it's enormously versatile. Libraries are collections of functionalities that people have written in this language already that abstract things even further, meaning if I have to talk to Tableau, I don't necessarily have to do that in some specific obscure language, but things will have been done to make that approachable. And so there are libraries to talk to Tableau, there are libraries to talk to your electricity meter, there are libraries, and I kid you not, to talk to this electronic drum set here behind me that I'm showing on the camera right now. Literally, I can read out the notes being played because some person in the world thought it'd be interesting to develop a Python library so that you can read the notes being played from an electronic drum kit. So that's how versatile it is. That's how wide the range is of things that you can do. And on top of that, it is very data friendly, just like R, which is being mentioned right now. It's always been R versus Python. I mean, I think at least a while ago, like data science was a thing 10 years ago. It still is, obviously, but back then it was emerging, and it's like, I think you had two camps. I've never been a data scientist myself, but I saw a lot of things, being either in R or either in Python. But both are definitely widely used in that space, and that by extension then also translates into how we use it with Tableau. Now, those are general arguments, but more specifically, here's the why Tableau. Um, I often see that in the Tableau space that I work in, there are two main types of profiles. Of course, there are way more, but I'm going to generalize a bit here. So in case you are in the first categories, you're an analyst, a business analyst, or any kind of business intelligence specialist, then you work with charts, with data, with extracts. Within which programming language should you learn? The answer remains Python in this case. And well, we will see some arguments for that later on, but there are many things that Tableau in combination with Python can do that your job as an analyst will benefit from. And similarly, the second type of genericized profile I often see is the more technical Tableau administrator, the person who manages Tableau, the person who integrates Tableau with other platforms, the person who automates things around Tableau. Well, those are things that also knowing Python can help, do efficiently. So with that, I've had an introduction. I am a lead developer at Bistry. So I've been an analyst and I've been a Tableau administrator for a very long time, and I now mostly develop things around Tableau. But enough about me. Let's go into. Oh, thank you, Viraj. Yeah, that's Marcel. The baby is our first. Yeah. Um, but I said enough about me. You have more interesting things to learn about today. Our agenda consists of a number of examples that we're going to walk through. As I mentioned initially, these are practical hands-on examples. So I'm going to demonstrate these to you. No need to follow them yourselves. Um, but there are a number of them. It's gonna, well, normally it goes quite fast because this session is designed to be delivered in 25 minutes. But Chris, you told me we have time today, so maybe I don't have to cram it all in that narrow amount of time. And so we'll just take the time we need. And again, appreciate you chiming in if there's any questions because we do have that flexibility now. So these 6 examples can be divided over those 2 profiles, perhaps. Again, it's a bit genericized, but the first 4 are very typical analytics-specific uses of Python with Tableau. And then the other 2 are the ones that Tableau admins and integrators and the likes might be interested in. They work with APIs and integrations. So with this in mind, before we start them, I'm going to show you what our general context will be for the analytics examples mostly. And for this, I'm now sharing on the screen a code editor. And I'm going to preamble this by saying we're going to see a lot of lines of code on the left side, and we're going to see a lot of outputs and stuff on the right side. You don't need to focus too much on the details. These are mostly illustrative, and I'm going to walk us through it. Not line by line, but I'm going to generally tell you like this piece of code does the following so that you have an idea of what's going on and so that you can then see what's happening and how the components integrate and how those things work. But again, don't try to understand every line because it's too much to focus on. Of course, if you're interested in any of that code, we can share that because it's just very, very generic examples, but they are the foundation of how we can have Tableau and Python work together. Now, before that, as I mentioned, the context, our setting, our role here is we are an analyst, and I have data on the right side. It's a CSV of online store reviews. It's very generic. It's random data. It's just 100 lines, I think. Not even. It's just 50 lines, and it's so-called reviews of, let's say, here's a portable charger. Some person thinks that it has an amazing sound quality and is totally worth the price. And then we have a number of other reviews. And what we're going to do, this is our use case, is we're going to perform a so-called sentiment analysis, which I think is a very widely used and kind of foundational thing to do in the space of data and Python. Like interpreting the sentiment of a certain fragment of text, trying to evaluate whether these reviews are good or bad, whether, if these are our products, we can gain information about what people think of our laptop stands and portable chargers, and we can use that to aggregate and then well, draw, of course, draw conclusions and make decisions based on all this. And I can run this piece of code. It uses one of those libraries in Python I mentioned earlier. Again, a library is an implementation of a specific concept, talking to Tableau, reading drum kit notes, or in this case, estimating what the sentiment of a certain piece of text is. And this does much, much more than just that. And again, I'm no data scientist, but I understand more or less how it works. We can we can load that library, we can set up an analyzer, and we can pass it data and ask it to run a certain function. In this case, evaluate a polarity score or generate a polarity score, which means this is going to be a positive score if there's a positive feeling to the text we're looking at, or it's going to be a negative score if there's a negative feeling. And it's going to get closer to zero, I think, if it is just neutral. And so all this does is it's going to iterate over all the rows, assign a score, and I'm going to translate that score based on a certain range to an emoji. Like a thinking one means neutral, a happy one means positive, and an angry one means negative, and then we're going to output that data. So if I run this on the right side, there's a lot of garbage first, but then we get the output. And we see here, for example, we have a neutral thinking face saying, well, it does the job, but it's nothing extraordinary. So that sounds good. Another one here, very happy, charges fast, super portable, must have. Very positive sentiment. It seems to function. Now, if you read through these, you'll see that some are also incorrectly evaluated. Like this person here, happy, performance is acceptable, but some features feel lacking. That's not necessarily very correct, but it's about the concept here. So in general, this will be accurate. If I were a real data scientist or if I were the actual analyst on this use case, I could fine tune the implementation of how I use the function and then get more accurate results. But that's not the point. Our point here today is going to be, how does this work together with Tableau? So that's what we're going to focus on. Again, in general, it's correct, but you'll see a few weird ones because of how this evaluation work. And like you say, Viraj, sarcasm, for example, is tricky to detect. Like if there was a sarcastic remark here, I'm pretty sure that unless you spend the time fine-tuning that quite specifically, that'd probably be difficult to find out. Anyway, this is our scenario, and so we're going to walk through these examples now, starting with TabPy and analytics. And TabPy, this is going to be kind of the cornerstone of most of the things that we do today. TabPy, I should introduce that first. Oh, and then the product reviews. I think I already went through that. So a very good cutter and guy in the hospital that wrote a good review about it because he tested it a bit too thoroughly. But so TabPy is effectively the way that you can get Tableau to talk with Python or in Python. I guess it depends on the perspective you want to take. It's a application server, which is actually um, an application that runs either on your computer or somewhere as a service, and that Tableau can connect to. And it will function through requests and responses, meaning Tableau will reach out to that TabPy application server with a certain request. For example, I need a sentiment analysis for this data. And then there's going to be a certain response that gets returned. And that's a response that Tableau can then process and do something with, like display that data. It basically is just something that Tableau talks to and that executes the Python code for Tableau. That's not too complicated, I think. Of course, the setup of it can be technical depending on how it has to be hosted, etc. That's also not really the focus for today. Happy to clarify that later if that is relevant. But in general, just remember that there are two components. On one hand, there's TabPy, and on the other hand, there's Tableau Desktop or Tableau Server or Tableau Cloud, and they're going to talk to that TabPy instance with requests, with questions, and then that instance is going to respond with a certain processed result or enriched result. And that is exactly what we're going to demonstrate now with this first approach, analytics extensions. Basically, these are, you could say, live Python calculations in Tableau terms, right? You know, you can write calculated field. A calculated field with Python in it is something you can run with TabPy through what they call analytics extensions. So basically, you can supercharge your Tableau analysis because rather than just having the normal functions in Tableau calculations, you can extend that with the full functionality of a complete programming language, Python specifically, because this means that you're no longer going to be limited to using just purely that Tableau calculation syntax, which is already quite powerful, but now the full functionality of Python becomes available. And it's important to note that we're going to show this in desktop, but this is something that you can do also on server and cloud. So you can then publish that workbook with the analytics extensions, with those enriched calculations, and use that interactively on Tableau Cloud or server for all of your viewers and explorers and consumers. So how does it work? As I mentioned, the paradigm is we have desktop on one hand, it sends a question to TabPy, a request, and it gets a response. Very simple paradigm, but let's demonstrate that so that it becomes clear. Okay, the code here is relatively unimportant, but it's just how I've set up TabPy. So this means that you install these libraries that TabPy is going to work with and that Tableau is going to work with. I've created a user for myself, and I can then run TabPy. I think I'll do that here. So I have these somewhere. Um, let's see. So yeah, scripts and then something run TabPy. So I mentioned there's a server application. You can run that as a service somewhere in the cloud or on a server. In this case, I'm running this in this little window on my computer so that Tableau can communicate locally. And there's going to be a lot of output here. Again, don't worry about the details. This is just going to show us what's happening. It's going to echo the functions we're asking it to use. It's going to output errors if there are any problems with our code. But all in all, it's just the kind of the heartbeat of the application of TabPy that we can keep an eye on here. But essentially, we really want to see this in action in Tableau. So I'm going to open this workbook in just a second. Just first, I'm going to show you this code on the left side now is kind of the same as what we had before, except this has been adapted to work in Tableau. So if you just glanced at this, this is going to be almost exactly the same. And it's kind of true because really we just iterate over data that we get. We have our sentiment analysis tool, and we're going to assign a polarity score and an emoji, and then return those results to Tableau. So the code has been rewritten, but the differences are really small. Really, it's almost the same code, just that this has been turned into a function, and then I'm going to showcase this now in Tableau. So in Tableau, here I have a workbook. This is just a placeholder landing page. And as I click on this sheet, which has that data, then it's almost instantaneous because it's only 50 rows of data. But what happened is I can see the output here. This function was actually executed, evaluated by Tableau by sending it to TabPy, and the results have been returned. And I see the same reviews here, the same happy person that says that this Bluetooth speaker is a must-have for travelers, and then another angry person, case didn't fit properly and broke after a week. But the whole point is, so this field, sentiment polarity here, this calculation, oops, I didn't need to double click it, but if I edit it, and if I bring it over to this screen, just one moment, then you will see, I'll try and zoom in a little bit. I think that should be possible. Oops. That this is a Tableau calculation that contains this exact function that I showed you in the text editor earlier. So I've effectively extended the capabilities of this calculation with Python code that iterates through data. And what I do is I say I use a specific script underscore function, which works with Python, works with R, as long as you have that TabPy component or an RServe component. And I pass it that logic along with the data, the review text that I wanted to analyze, and it returns the results that I have put together with these emoji. And then I have this available directly in Tableau through an analytics extension, as they call it. It's a lot of information, but essentially the process is quite simple, right? You are able to run Python code in Tableau by passing that through TabPy, and they call that an analytics extension. This is our first and original use case, by the way. So there are a few others that use TabPy that we're going to walk through in just a second. But this was kind of the OG, if you will. This is the first integration between the two, between Tableau and Python, that was released. Now, many of us have used desktop for a while, and this has been available for a long time. And then at some point, along came prep, and originally this was supported, but at some point, support for this functionality, the same kind of communication between Tableau Prep and TabPy as there is between desktop and TabPy, became available. They call this prep scripts. And this is interesting because you can essentially do the same thing. You have calculations in prep, you have calculations in desktop. Well, you can also extend the functionalities of those calculations in prep with prep scripts. So you can supercharge your Tableau analysis, but much earlier in the data pipeline, because this is going to be your stage before Tableau Desktop. It's going to be pre-processing your data and materializing it, with the benefit that, well, you don't have to do these calculations live. You saw the example was instantaneous, but this was 50 lines of data. If you have 1 million reviews to evaluate, then this would not run so smoothly in Tableau Desktop. I mean, it would probably take a few seconds, but you may benefit from pre-calculating this information if you can, because then you have it materialized in your extract or whichever database you write back to, and then you can use it straight from there. Same paradigm, prep sends data to TabPy and gets a response. So let's demonstrate that. I think I should have prep open here too. Yeah, I do. And I have the same flow here, the same idea actually, the same sentiment analysis, except in a flow this time. And just to show you first, the code for this is a bit more segmented. Like I have 3 different functions now. I don't think I really had to split it up like that, but it seemed to work well. And essentially it's going to do the same thing. Set up this sentiment analysis component. I'm going to go through all of the rows in a so-called data frame. That's just a data structure that represents a table with a number of rows. I have an input, and I'm going to assign a sentiment to that. I'm going to do that with the emoji as well. Again, no need to look into the details, but just to show you that conceptually the code is exactly the same. It's just been rearranged a bit for use with Python. Now, if I go to, for use with prep. And if I go to prep and I open the flow, it's a very, very simple flow. I can zoom in a little bit. I have a cleaning step, which is just dummy stuff I do, but just to show you that it is the same data. It's taking a while already. I think it may be running it through here already. I do see an error, unauthorized request. That's because I did not yet authenticate Tableau Prep to my TabPy server, but I will do so right now. And well, in this step, this is just a cleaning step. I don't have my enriched data yet, but you can see that I have some grouping going on and whatever. But then here's my script step. And as I open that, then it's going to reach out to TabPy again, get the data back. And here's my aggregated now, because that's how prep shows the data, sentiment analysis emoji for all of the reviews that I have. And then there's more detail here as well. But essentially, the same thing, except we did it earlier in the data pipeline now, and we can use this anywhere in the next steps in our analysis, and it's already materialized, so we benefit from the performance. So this is really, there's no right answer to the choice between these two. It depends on whether you need interactivity, in which case the first one will be more interesting, or if you have the luxury of being able to pre-process it, then you can do it here as well. But there's a number of factors, of course, that will influence that decision. Now, to make things even more complicated, there is another option in between as well, and that's the most recent TabPy related integration. This is what they call table extensions. It's kind of before the analysis as well, but it's still in Tableau Desktop as part of the data source, of the connection to your data that you make. So it's Python kind of as a Tableau Desktop data source, but I thought it was interesting to highlight because I see kind of a different use for it, and maybe not everyone shares that view, but let me show you what I think about these. So you would supercharge your Tableau data sources this time, and I see the possibility here of bringing in data from any kind of source, and I'll show you how that works in a moment. So you could get data from virtually anywhere, and you could also reshape it, enrich it at that step that is kind of in between. It's not your prep flow, it's the Tableau desktop data source, but it's also not the analysis, it's not the calculations, it's not live. It's going to run it from desktop, but before we get to the actual performance intensive interactive part. So yeah, data from anywhere or enriched existing data at load time. Kind of the same paradigm, except here I chose to illustrate that effectively desktop will connect to TabPy, but then before the data goes back to desktop, you could get data from anywhere, enrich data from anywhere, and then use it in your analysis. Again, this is kind of my personal view on the matter, but a showcase of what that could look like is um, I have an other script now. It's still analyzing review data, but now I'm downloading review data online from this URL. And you can see it's already been running for a while. If I go to TabPy here, you see I actually have a script that is unzipping data that I downloaded, that is performing the sentiment analysis. It's now 90,000 rows, and it opened in about 20 seconds. But this was as I was opening the workbook. So again, it's not going to be during the interactive analysis that follows now, but it is going to be as part of opening the data source. Now, of course, this is a one-time thing, so you could extract the data, but for demonstration purposes, it's happened live now as I connected. And let me show you what that actually is. So I have a data source, and it has a single table extension in here. This becomes part of the logical model that I can use. And that table extension, if I were to be able to open it, do I have to double click? I suppose I do. Then you see this is the code that I was just showing you earlier. And it's doing those very steps. It's downloading the data from a URL. It's unzipping that because it's a zip file. And then line by line, it is performing the sentiment analysis with the emoji. And then it's also even reshaping the data because I suppose it's in a different kind of tabular format here. And the output of that is the same, well, the same type of data at the end. I have an overall score here that I think comes from the source data, but then I have my scores. I don't think we output that here, but I have the emoji like we always do. And then again, this is on 90,000 rows now. So if I scroll down a bit, you'll see I see there's only 52,000 marks, but the source data was that much. So Baron's digital service does no work. That is not a happy review. Barron's is a good read. That is a happy review. Again, accuracy is disputable, but it's essentially the same analysis done at a different point in the data pipeline again. Um, Again, my view on this is that it's useful because I can like generate a whole new table out of nowhere. This is online data. I didn't connect to a file or a database. And on top of that, it's part of your logical model. So you can relate this to any table like you would otherwise in your data model. I just connected to Superstore here, so there's no useful relation I can show you, but just as an idea, you could have any of your data from your database and then enrich that by connecting this table extension to it. And then that could come with whole new data, that could come with process data from another table. The sky really is the limit here. So it has these additional kind of functionalities, if you will, additional things you can do in my eyes compared to the original analytics extensions and the prep scripts. There's a little more you can do if you're happy having this in your Tableau data source. Okay, so those were three analyst use cases, and the idea is now to pivot towards that other profile. Remember, so we have the analyst and we have the Tableau admins, the technical developers, integrators, automators, and people who will benefit from using APIs from Tableau. So this is relevant here too. We're going to kind of step away from the reviews use case, but now we're going to see how Python can help alleviate the working with Tableau's APIs, how it can actually make that more efficient and more simple, and give another few real life examples here of how I've seen this being used. We're going to start with what they call the Tableau server client. I'm going to go back to what I've mentioned a few times already, which is Python is a very versatile language, mainly because of the libraries that have been developed for it. The Tableau server client is a Python library, specifically one that will help you work with Tableau's REST API. Now, if you don't know the REST API, this is the icon for it. The REST API is your programmatic contact point with Tableau Server and Tableau Cloud. It's a whole number of endpoints, as they call them, of functionalities that you can use to manage, automate, integrate everything around Tableau Server. You can use it to create users, create projects, move content between projects, and do all those kinds of things with any programming language, not just Python. But if you do choose to use Python, then you will benefit from this Tableau server client, which is a library that leverages the API functionalities. And the advantages here are, rather than having to learn relatively extensive concepts and syntax and how these REST APIs function, you can simply use the library and its built-in functions that are going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. So it's easier to use, it saves time, and it prevents mistakes are three main advantages I think I would advocate for when selling you the server client library. It's not actually something you need to buy. It's just a Python library you can use and download. It's community maintained, but supported by Tableau. And to illustrate this, to give you an example here, I'm going to go back to some code. And at this point here on the left, I'm not going to run this code, but I'm just going to slowly scroll through to illustrate, if I were to write this without that library in Python still, I would write code to connect to my environment. I would do that based on certain credentials. Maybe that's going to be a connected app. Maybe that's going to be a personal access token. I would connect. I would store these credentials. I would yeah, depending on which method we use, I would have a different logic that I need to implement. I would form that that request and get the response, etc., etc., etc. And I'd end up with a connection. After which I can write a function to fetch content. My use case in this one is very simple. It's just to fetch a list of projects. But I need to account for pagination. I need to have my connection ready. And then there's some logic based on different types of content in case I'm looking for not projects, but flow runs, blah, 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 blah. Long story short, I have 185 lines if I don't use the library because I need to write the foundations myself. Now, if I do use the library, then these 19 lines is what we're left with. I can just pass it my connection information, say, this is my online pod, this is my online site. In some variables, I have my API tokens, and I can press F5 to run the code. And in a mere 19 lines, of which really actually, these last 4 or 5 are the logic, I can list all of the projects and their internal IDs super easily by saying my projects are Tableau server client.projects.all and then just print their name and ID. It's enormously simple. I didn't have to write the connection logic. I didn't have to write the abstract, the fetching logic, the pagination, etc. I just use the functions that exist and I get the information that I need much more directly. Especially if you're new to these concepts of the REST API, etc., this is going to make things so much easier because for almost every endpoint, there's a function or there's an abstraction that you can use, and everything's going to become much more approachable, and it's going to especially prevent mistakes that could cost you a lot of time to troubleshoot. So definitely advise you to look into this if you want to get started with automating or integrating Tableau related stuff in the REST API. Okay, we have one more example. This is just the diagram. But then the Hyper API is another API. So we've talked about TabPy, the server application. We've talked about the REST API, and then there's the Hyper API. It's not Python specific. If I'm not mistaken, there's actually support for 4 different languages, Java as well, C++ possibly. I don't really know actually, but Python is one of them. And again, here, knowing that programming language will make you gain a lot of control of how you can ingest data in Tableau. So just to be clear, I'm sure, well, actually, I should be aware, not everyone here might be familiar with what this is specifically. But Hyper, I think most people have heard the term. Hyper is the format behind the Tableau extract. So extract the data from a database. You can create a Hyper extract from desktop. This is stepping away from using desktop to do this and having to manually connect and refresh the extract, but it is the API around it, meaning you can effectively develop scripts to get your data. Hyper indeed, Fee. This is good times. The release of Hyper was such a party. So yeah, because effectively it's actually a database format that is enormously powerful and specifically tuned to Tableau. And having this API on top of it means that you or whoever manages your data pipeline or integrates your data can actually get the data from anywhere now, but gets massive data from anywhere, as in, you know how creating an extract in desktop is fast but might still take time, like you see when it's executing query and then importing rows and you have your counter going 100,000, 200,000, etc. You get programmatic control over how that data gets put in Hyper from here. So I'm going to show you the example in just a second, but you can basically supercharge your Tableau extracts. Data can come from anywhere because you can connect your Python script to anything, any database, any API. And again, any size, any speed. This is going to be the fastest option if you need to deal with large amounts of data. Of course, it will work in desktop and you will be able to refresh your extract on server, etc. as well. But this is really the approach when you need all of the control and all of the power, then this is going to be interesting. So, well, this is a very poor example in these few lines that I'm showing now because it's a very small amount of data. But nonetheless, it takes 2 microseconds to write 100 rows. You can extrapolate, meaning it'll take just minutes to write millions of rows, maybe even a billion. But let's actually showcase that example. And here too, what we're going to do is we're going to have Python and specifically the Hyper API connecting to cloud data, not a database in this case. And I have a bit of a weird use case, but it's one that has actually proven useful. What we do here is we're going to go to Tableau Cloud. I should have that open somewhere, probably here actually. Yeah. And the use case is in early days on Tableau Cloud, you didn't have what they call admin insights. And I think some of you may be familiar, some of you may not. Admin insights is all data about your site, about your Tableau Cloud site, about the content on there, about the workbooks and the views and the data sources, about the number of views that they have, the job performance extract for extract refreshes and how long they take, etc., etc. So these are all readily available data sources with info about your Tableau Cloud site. They are basically, if you're a Tableau server user, they're kind of a layer that gives you access to the repository, the Postgres repository data, but not completely because, well, the repository in case of Tableau Cloud is obviously not shareable. It's not approachable because it's a multi-tenant environment. But the compromise that Tableau made is that they have these admin insights available. Now, these are relatively new. So before these were things, where I work, we wrote a script that would actually gather this data from the Tableau REST API to then compose an extract and make that available. So it kind of skips this, but it uses a different source. It uses the REST API where you can, let's say, fetch your projects, fetch your views and how many views each dashboard has, etc., etc. And then it would put that together in an extract and then publish that so that it could be connected to a workbook. And that's what this script does. So again, it's much more extensive, so we're not going to go through everything, but it's actually almost, if you will, production ready. So it's quite extensive, a lot of fluff around it. You could write this in a much simpler way. But essentially what it's going to do is we're going to pass it our Tableau server side and credentials again. And we are going to then have it do its thing, which is it's going to connect to Tableau Cloud, to the REST API, query all the data from the REST API that it needs. So that's projects, workbooks, views, etc. And then it's going to use the Hyper extract, the Hyper API, that was the whole point, to create an extract and publish that to Tableau Cloud. So we have the info on there. I think I can run it this way. And I need to pass it my personal access token, which I still have here. Okay. I'll clear it after the webinar so you cannot look at my dev site, which doesn't contain anything interesting anyway. But here it's already done. So there's two sections to it. One is it has queried the project's workbooks, data sources, views on the site, and then it has created this extract. Again, not a demo of the capacity of the speed here, but still almost like instantaneously in less than 20 milliseconds, sorry, microseconds, I have, no, milliseconds, I meant milliseconds. I'm not a scientist either, but in less than that amount of time, I have my extract put together and then published to Tableau Cloud, and I can then actually visit it. This is my newly published extract. It is from right now, that's the time it is here in Belgium. And again, the power is that it contains data that I just pulled out of thin air, if you will, from the Tableau REST API. And here is my list of projects on my Tableau site, the ones that you just saw earlier. And I have a number of views on here, which are essentially dashboards. And I have data about their usage, etc. as well. So there, not much usage because it's just my dev site. Well, some usage, but again, here relatively powerful because I now have programmatic access to the Hyper API and to data from anywhere. I can put all that together and then use that in any way that I see fit, including any kinds of volumes of data. I've been talking for much longer than the original 25 minutes, so thank you for accommodating that. All I still have for you is the mandatory homework page. If you are interested in any of this, you can head to developer.tableau.com. There's going to be a ton of resources there to get started. Alternatively, obviously, you're welcome to reach out. And if you want to talk about any of these things, I can help you get started with them. And I think that's the thank you slide from TC25.
That was awesome.
Thank you, Chris. It was a lot, I think. I hope not too overwhelming, but I wanted to really showcase a lot of the possibilities because I'm sure one of these should speak to a member of the audience anyway.
Yeah, but it's a good overview of what Python can do and how Tableau works with Python to enable all that sort of stuff as well.
Right. Yeah. There are
Yeah.
so many things. I mean, I showed 5, but there are even more that we don't really have time for. But somewhere you should be able to find something that's useful to you, I think. Oh, the link in the earlier slide is one of the questions. That's developer.tableau.com. A question from Tatiana. Could you mention best practices when converting Python scripts for use with Tableau? Yes, I think I can. It's a good question. I've never had that one before. In the context of what we saw in the beginning, using analytics extensions and prep scripts with Tableau, I did effectively mention I
What's the most
started from.
exciting thing that you've seen done using Python and Tableau?
Oh, sorry, Fee, I didn't get earlier.
Oh, sorry, I was typing it into chat and I was just being really lazy and using a dictating thing that both Chris, myself, and Sarah are absolutely nuts about because it saves us so much time. But I was wondering, what's the most exciting thing that you've seen done using Python and Tableau?
Oh yeah. Well, let me get back to that. But I think is it okay if I still answer the
yeah,
question?
sorry. Did I cut in? Did I cut in with what I was saying? I thought it was.
Yeah, but perhaps there's
sorry.
a delay. That's okay. No worries. Yeah, we'll get to that. Tatiana was asking about best practices for converting Python scripts for use in Tableau. So I did mention with the first 2 use cases, analytics extensions and prep scripts, that I started from the base native, if you will, Python script, and then made a few changes to make that work in Tableau or with prep. So I don't know if there really are best practices, but I would say on one hand, if you work with TabPy, there's a functionality you can use that I didn't mention, which is you can actually store functions in there. Like you can save functions for use with TabPy from Tableau, meaning you could define a function that processes that code, the sentiment analysis application, if you will. And that doesn't have to be Tableau oriented, but then having that function available, and that could be the function you use anywhere, like just in your normal Python day-to-day coding, you can then call that. You can approach that from Tableau with just a single line. And so if you just wrap that with the logic that you need to get the Tableau data in there and then return it and then have it processed that way, then that's one way I think you can minimize the amount of transformations you need to do for the code. So that fits both use cases, by the way, the desktop and the prep one, because TabPy is the underlying enabler for both. So I would say that keeping that in mind, you can just reuse the logic that you have stored elsewhere, and that should be easy to do. In fact, well, I'll add one more thing, which is I know of organizations that do this, and they even have repositories for these Python functions that they use not only with Tableau, but across the organization where Python is used, so that they have unified logic in there. And what they do is they automatically publish these functions to TabPy so that they can be reused there. So it's possible to even maintain this centrally and automatically update the way functions are being used across platforms, but including Tableau. So that's kind of the expert level use case, I would say. Then maybe coming back to Fee, what you were asking, the most exciting thing that I've seen being done with Python and Tableau. Wow. Um, there are so many things. Okay, maybe I'm gonna start with a lame answer, and we're gonna see where where that takes us. But um, just the way that the simplest but time-consuming tasks can be automated, that's a pretty big win for me. It's not very exciting when you've seen it 10 times, but being able to build simple automations around the REST API that do save people hours every week, like just your Tableau management, that can be exciting too in my eyes, because that gives those people time to do other things. One example is another organization that I've seen, and they've taken that to the next level. They have written a whole automated access management tool. So it's in Python. It uses Django as well. Django is a Python web development framework, so you can host an interactive website with it, with server-side code and stuff. And so they built a whole app where everyone in their organization, I think there's at least 100,000 people working there, they can log into that app and they can request a project for their team. A project gets created. They get the ability through that tool to then manage access to it, saying, oh, we have this Active Directory group of directors and I need them to have viewer access, and my team gets creator access, etc. They've taken that whole integration or more like automation thing to the next level. And I think that that Tableau team that originally may have spent hours every week provisioning this manually has effectively invested in developing this tool, but then saving all those hours every week. So um, I'm saying it might not sound exciting, but that's what this kind of integration is about, and that's a perfect demonstration of how you can really benefit from doing that. So I really like that one.
Viraj, go for it.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I think one of the use cases that I have used, and this was quite old, and I'm not sure if it still holds true for any use cases, considering now we have these Slack integration and so on. So I think 2019, 2020 is stuff when we had automated and snapshot of the dashboard to be converted into PDF, and then that sent as an email to the stakeholders because they just wanted a screenshot view every uh, week in the start of the week, or maybe some Tuesday or Wednesday, and they just don't want to interact with the dashboard. They just wanted that, and that's what we had used it.
Yeah, that's quite early days, I think, for you to build that. I think I've over the last few years, I've heard that as a very common request and use case. So much so that we went and we built something that does this as well. So this is not a commercial session, but if I may be free, we've built a platform that does exactly that. It has a component that's called Insights Messaging, and here I can effectively schedule certain formats of certain dashboards that get sent to certain destinations at certain points in time. Just to
Nice.
confirm, effectively, this is such a common request. You can do that in quite powerful ways as well. We're always a bit disappointed that we have to, go out of Tableau and then get them the data elsewhere. But I've seen valid use cases for this too. Of course, all use cases that they want are valid, but one that was particularly interesting was they wanted to export the data from a certain dashboards in CSV, and I can see half the people having heart attacks now. But what they did was they effectively asked us to then have the table built into the email. So it's not just a CSV. We get the data as a CSV, but then we write it as an HTML table in the email. There would be people in CC, and then there would be fields that are left blank that they can fill in with some business justifications or whatever, and then just respond to all with that filled in. And that would be actually quite an interesting flow in my eyes, because it's super low friction for them. They get an email with the data, they fill in the 3 empty fields, and that it gets sent out again. And so something that admittedly interactively would take them longer by signing into Tableau and opening the dashboard, etc., was done just in their email, which is the workplace, if you will, for most people. So yeah, we see interesting things around that as well.
Right. And there's just one more question is like probably have you tried using an AI, maybe APIs, calling APIs through the Python script, AI APIs, and maybe for taking the sentiment as an example, probably get more uh, AI driven solutions.
Yeah. I haven't done that specifically, not with the sentiment analysis. Um, I'll stop sharing, by the way, because nothing really to show. But I have tried. Of course, I had to. I'm a quote unquote developer in this space, so it's 2025. I had to try and do something with AI. Um, the way we used it, same platform as I was just showing earlier, is that sending of dashboards to different destinations in different formats. There's a little toggle, and you can ask AI to comment on the data. Is it a useful feature? I don't know. I mean, like, ideally your dashboard is well designed and you don't need someone to tell you that that big red KPI is bad, but it's a bit funny. Like, we have a running dashboard we send, and running means like some people at Bistry where I work, we go running and we have monthly targets. And so we have a monthly running target dashboard, and we'll have AI comment on it. And it will be like, oh, this person really needs to up their game this month if they want to make their target, etc., etc. So is it useful insights being generated by AI? Not really, but is it good to motivate that person to run? Well, maybe a little more, because it's being, dissed by AI, and everyone can see it. Yeah, so just random use cases like that, but nothing too serious.
Great. Thanks.
Awesome. Any other questions from anyone? Just unmute, ask your questions, or type them in the chat. Silence means we move on, which is good.
Yeah.
So again, Timothy's contact details, Tableau Public, and LinkedIn already had some other details there before as well.
Well, I guess, yeah, LinkedIn is the place to be, right? There's not so many people with my name. There's one other BI developer in Antwerp somehow, but yeah.
So easy to find. It's easy.
Yeah, he doesn't do Tableau, so I'm good.
Awesome. So Viraj mentioned AI. So we get onto the fast 5 questions, which is 5 quick questions, quick answers, all AI generated, but I sort of filtered them down anyway to something that actually made sense. But again, as I said before in previous tugs, if anyone wants to give me 5 questions to ask presenters, because the 5 questions are always completely different. No one's seen these questions before. I hope not. Because I was talking to ChatGPT earlier today to make up these questions for you.
Interesting.
So again, it's supposed to be a quick question, it's a quick answer. They're Tableau related. If you want to pass, it's fine. It's just a light-hearted thing. It's not anything serious at all.
Okay, let's go.
Awesome. So number 1, do you like dashboards that tell a story or dashboards that let you explore?
It depends. I guess whereas I see the value in the story, as in it is the core foundational concept around what most of us do, I think, using the dashboard to tell a story. I really like to sit down and build an exploratory dashboard that has this good flow that brings people to insights as well. But maybe they can get a story from that. So there.
Yep, definitely. Awesome. And number 2, do you believe a dashboard should inform first or inspire first?
I never thought about that. In a business context, inform first. It has to be effective.
Yep, perfect. And number 3, do you think every visualization contains bias, even unintentionally?
The ones in newspapers, definitely. As poor as they may sometimes be. No, I believe that, if you design actively to avoid bias, you should be able to do that. Keep it simple enough.
Yep, definitely.
I believe Chris has a few charts which he has showed on Twitter, and I think that some weird graphics through the news channels.
Oh, that was just data being silly, or people being silly with data. But it was just weird that they don't pick it up when they put it on national TV, or before they put it on national TV.
Those are very entertaining.
Yeah, it's always good when a pie chart doesn't add up to 100%, or there's legends that don't have data slices in the pie chart at all. So whichever. It was good for a few days. Question 4 is the purpose of a visualization to reveal the truth or make the truth easier to accept?
Oh, as a purist, I would say it has to be to reveal the truth. I'm not saying I'm a purist, but if I were.
Yeah.
But it can definitely be used to make the truth easier to accept, and maybe, well, it's not the exact same thing, but to provide context always. Like, here's additional information to help you understand why, and that's what the truth then is.
Definitely. And the last one is the highest compliment for your work beautiful, useful, or invisible?
Whoa, difficult. I think useful for me, just because it's explicitly people being, I guess, thankful for a tool that makes their lives easier, ideally.
Yeah, definitely. I know. Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
That
you
was
for your
fun.
time.
Yeah.
No, that's good. That's all. That's what it's supposed to be, right? It's just a bit of good stuff. Our next TUG meeting is Alex talking about dashboard design and inspiration tips. So if you're here now for this meeting, then it's basically in a week's time, minus a half an hour. But that'll be another good one to see. Again, good if you're in Australia and Europe. Not so good if you're in the US. But again, we slide our times around all the time. Depends on who's presenting. The recording of this session and all other online TUGs that I can help put their stuff on YouTube. It's all at Team DataFam on YouTube. There's also the audio version on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Again, sessions like this, you might need to actually watch to see what the code's doing and everything that Timothy's talking about. But I was doing a lot of driving on the weekend. I could actually listen to the podcast and then come back and actually see them later on as to the bits that I wanted to see. So if anyone's got any comments, if you want to present, if you want to give me some fast 5 questions, anything like that, please email me at team.datafam@gmail.com. But again, thank you, Timothy, for your time. It was always good to see how you look at Python and Tableau and getting all those things to work together.
Thank you. That's my job, getting things to work together. So very happy to be able to share that here.
Awesome. And if anyone else wants to talk or ask more questions, then now's the time. Otherwise, that's the end of the session.
Okay. Thank you for having me. See you next time.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.